So let's get right into solving this map. First thing we need to talk about is quick resets. In Lunatic Plus mode, you will sometimes have maps, especially in the first 5 chapters, where quick resetting helps improve your chances a lot. The best way I like to explain it so people don't misunderstand is that you do not need to keep resetting for the perfect RNG. All you need to do is identify the worst possible RNG, and then you can reset to avoid that worst possible case. So this fighter over here, check him out. He's got a hammer equipped. Check his skills really quickly and see if he has the Hawkeye skill. It's the one marked with this little infinity symbol and a blue icon. As I mentioned in the last video, 100% accuracy on effective weapons are absolutely killer. So just go ahead and reset if you see that. If he doesn't have Hawkeye, you can play the chapter out, and that's the essence of quick resetting. It only takes about 30 seconds at most, and saves you a ton of time in the long run, because otherwise in a few minutes this guy is going to hit Frederick and one-shot him, and then you end up losing 3 to 5 minutes of your time instead of only losing 20 to 30 seconds. On turn 1, Chrom can easily reach this fort. Have Frederick pair up with him and move over to the fort. Chrom can have his falchion equipped here. Whether you'd prefer more accuracy or you'd rather conserve rapier charges is up to you. Personally, I don't value rapier charges all that much. I've actually never broken this thing in a run ever. However, in this case, you don't need the accuracy or even the damage. Frederick is just going to kill these guys anyway. However, it's worth noting, if Frederick did not level up strength in the previous chapter, he will leave these guys alive with 1 HP, which is a little bit suboptimal, and one of the reasons why I recommend resetting if needed in Chapter 0. Frederick definitely wants to equip the bronze sword that you passed him in Chapter 0. Frederick has 10 speed by default, and these fighters have 8 speed. So with the plus 3 speed that he gets from Chrom, even if you didn't gain any speed on your level ups, you will still double these guys. Every enemy on this map, including the boss, begins moving immediately. For that reason, you need to clear as many foes as possible every turn. This will prevent the enemy forces from overwhelming your group and killing your backline units. This fort is the perfect spot to stand on turn 1 because it allows Frederick to fight as many enemies as possible while boosting his defense and giving him free healing at the start of each turn. In Lunatic play, this opener is virtually 100% safe. In Lunatic Plus, it can sometimes fail on turn 1, but if that happens, it should only take about 1 minute to find out that you've lost. Obviously, 100% consistency would be the best possible thing, but in a game mode where that's not always possible, especially depending on how you're trying to play the game, depending on the circumstances, the next best thing is increasing your odds of winning while decreasing the amount of time you spend on losing attempts. That's the most valuable skill here. As for Lissa and Robin, do you see this line of trees over here? There's a corner here where you have a very long vertical row of forest tiles. At the very top of that row is a space where Sully will be able to reach next turn. Now for the best possible repositioning, I'd like to put Lissa to the right of this tile and put Robin above this tile. You'll see that Robin and Lissa and these 2 forest tiles will make a plus-shaped formation with an empty space in the middle. This empty space is where Sully is going to move next turn, and then I'll show you a useful strategy for all levels of play. This works in Lunatic, Lunatic Plus, and heck, it's even useful for Fates. So pay attention, Conquest gamers. During the enemy phase, Frederick will end up fighting a few enemies. You're hoping for Chrom dual strikes here, but they aren't needed to kill unless you miss that strength level up. The only thing they offer is allowing Chrom to get a bit of extra experience, which is really good. Anytime he dual strikes, you're basically conjuring free experience out of thin air. At the start of turn 2, we have a few choices to make. First of all, Frederick will often be at full health right now. Unless the enemies happen to roll a very specific batch of strong offensive skills, the fort will often heal him to full or near enough that it helps. If he's at full HP, it's usually a good idea to smack this mercenary and get him out of the way. However, if the mercenary has Vantage, then it makes no difference. You can just let him attack you on enemy phase. If your health got really low, you might need to do some math to figure out if enemies are able to kill you on the next turn, if you should use a vulnerary charge, or whether it's a good idea to rely on potentially dodging enemies and let the fort heal you. This is another really valuable skill, being able to do math in battles. It depends on which enemies have Hawkeye, it depends on other considerations. There's a lot of reasons why you need to be able to use your own judgment. Next turn, Frederick is going to fight 5 enemies instead of just 3, and one of them is the guy with the hammer, but don't be scared of him at all. While standing on the fort, his chance to hit you is pretty low. Actually, what's really funny is that you want to see the skill Zeal on these fighters. It gives them a bonus crit rate, which sounds deadly, but to be honest, if he hits you, you're dead anyway, so the extra crit doesn't matter at all. However, Zeal lowers his accuracy, which makes it even less likely for the hammer to hit you, and this is good. One trick I like to use to calculate enemy damage is running over to enemies and selecting them so I can see exactly how much accuracy and damage they have. Just remember, once you move back onto the fort, they'll have 20 less hit and 2 less attack, so you won't be in as much danger as you think. However, also remember that when enemies have Luna Plus, Frederick will take about an extra 7 damage per hit. This is because 7 is half of his defense score. This is a really fast way to keep track of extra damage from Luna Plus. You can actually look at your own defense stat, and you know that half of this number is the extra damage on top of the battle forecast. So if the battle forecast says 10 damage and you have 14 defense, you'll actually take about 17 damage. The extra 7 just comes from your defense being cut in half. I hope I was able to explain that in a way that is useful, because these quick mental calculations will make attempts go faster, which saves you time. Adding and removing weapon triangle advantage can be difficult with mental math, but thankfully the battle forecast usually includes this damage. If you have to calculate enemy damage while you're standing far away from them, I find it better to look at their attack rating first, and then if they have Luna Plus, just remove half of your defense score. Also, if I'm fighting multiple enemies, I add up all of their damage together, and then I remove my defense 3 times or 4 times depending on how many enemies I'm fighting. Another fun tip for Luna Plus is that if you only have to fight one enemy, if their listed attack value is less than your max HP, they can never one-shot you. Max HP is actually an incredibly good stat in Lunatic Plus mode, because in addition to playing around Luna Plus, it's also one of the ways to play around Counter. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming video, maybe Chapter 3. Okay, select Virion, skip through his dialogue, and have him pair up with Sully. Sully moves up here to this blank space that we prepared. She can pass Virion over to Robin, and then Sully can pair up with Lissa. Now your new recruits, Virion and Sully, can move even further across the map by passing Virion over to someone who was waiting, and then joining up with a character at the edge of her own movement. Sully essentially just boosted her own move by an extra 5 spaces thanks to Lissa, while also transporting Virion 12 tiles. We want to start moving toward the top of the map. This group is going to help pull away and defeat the archer by using the anchoring strategy that we discussed in the last chapter, and I'll go over it again soon, so don't worry. There is one important thing I want to make a note of. It is very crucial that Virion passes the elixir over to Frederick at some point during this chapter. You must do this. It is nearly essential for Chapter 2. If you forget to do it, there are some ways to fix the run, but this is one of the few cases where forgetting one small thing will not exactly soft lock, but it will make the next upcoming chapter way less consistent. I personally found it cuts my consistency almost in half, and it also drastically limits your actions on turn 1 for the next battle. Turn 1 is often the most important turn, and this is incredibly true in Chapter 2, so please don't forget. Pass the elixir over to Frederick when you get the chance. Unpair your units after moving them so you get 1 extra tile of movement. And let's just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Virion and Sully have gone from the bottom right of the map to the top middle section of the map in a single turn. That's pretty wild. Movement tech like this separates good players from great players, and can really help with trying to play a high-level game mode like Lunatic Plus. Honestly, Lunatic Plus, it doesn't just punish you for making mistakes, it actually punishes you to varying degrees for making any play other than the most optimal play. And the range of outcomes is so much wider than on lower difficulty modes, which is one of the reasons that I personally love this game. You do have to accept that sometimes the guy with the hammer is going to roll Hawkeye, and sometimes even when the enemy has like an 8% chance, they're still going to hit you. But to me, it's worth the trade-off because of how your odds of success can range from like 30% to 90% depending on your level of skill. No other difficulty mode really separates the low, mid, high, and top level skill players into brackets like this. Typically on normal, hard, and even lunatic modes, good players can just guarantee victory 100% of the time, and so it's hard to measure your exact skill level above that 100%. It's only Lunatic Plus where you can find your skill level in a range from like 30 to 90. Here is just one example of how game knowledge and skill can be tested dynamically. What should you do if Frederick's health is low this turn? Obviously you want to heal him if you need to, but do you need to? If this mercenary has Luna and he doesn't have Vantage, it can often be a good idea to hit him instead of healing, because a vulnerary will only heal you for 10 HP, but this guy next turn will deal more than 10 damage if you leave him alive. So in this situation, not using your healing item will actually heal you for more HP, just indirectly. Okay, I'm gonna get off this tangent. Enemy phase. Frederick will fight the next round of enemies, most likely clearing out this section of the map or leaving it very sparse. This is the last turn where he has a serious chance of dying due to bad luck. If you fail here, well, that's a reset. I'm sorry, it happens. I find that Lunatic Plus tends to be very tricky on turn 1 and turn 2, but starting from around turn 3 is when maps tend to become very consistent. The hardest ones are the maps that don't become consistent until turn 4 or turn 5. So your goal should be to navigate through these difficult RNG heavy sections with this dynamic range of outcomes, finding the highest possible success rate, and responding to the situations on the map as best as you can with your skill level. For example, responding to that first mercenary depends on his exact skills, which other enemies are still alive, and Frederick's HP total. I can't can't make a guide that tells you exactly what to do, because the state of the board is always going to be slightly different. What I can do is teach you the skills so that you can maximize your odds of success no matter what the state of the board looks like. And then, eventually, you'll stabilize and you'll find a line of play with close to 100% consistency around turn 3 or turn 4. Then, you need to make sure you don't make any more mistakes and you keep that 100% success. Let's talk about the final group and the boss. First of all, this archer. Because he has A rank in bows, he has 17 attack. In the higher difficulty modes, the enemies tend to have max weapon ranks, and starting pretty soon, they're going to be holding silver weapons and even forged weapons. But thankfully for now, it's just a regular iron bow. 17 damage is still unusually high, but it's not impossible to deal with. This guy can never one-shot Virion, even if he rolls Luna Plus. However, he has 5 more base speed than Virion, so he will double him and kill him. So how do we fix this problem? Robin gives +2 speed and Sully gives +1 speed, so actually either character will work for this. Pair-up options are very strong at patching up your weaknesses in Lunatic and Lunatic Plus mode. Sully will increase Virion's attack and damage a bit more than Robin will, but Robin actually increases Virion's accuracy by more than Sully does. Honestly, either choice works, just go with what you prefer. But the enemy will sometimes have an archer skill that boosts his avoid when he attacks, and I tend to use Robin in those cases, but otherwise I usually prefer Sully. You want to position your pair at the edge of the archer's range. First, highlight all of the other enemies except for the archer. Then, turn on the filter that shows all enemy attack ranges. You'll find a purple tile that only the archer can reach and hit. You might even have a few spaces to choose from. Pick one where the archer cannot stand in the woods while shooting at you ideally, and keep in mind next turn the boss is going to cover a lot of this area, so keep Lissa and your other units away to help for repositioning. You can use the tactic we showed off earlier by having them stand apart with an empty square between them. Then, next turn, your pair-up group can transfer over the waiting group to give them the highest possible mobility. Funny enough, every single time I recorded footage on this chapter, I forgot to do that, so it's not super important, but it probably helps. There's a good chance you'll need to run away or get out of the boss range on turn 4, depending on the situation. On this turn, if it's possible, I like to switch Chrom into the lead and have him attack this last mercenary to get the kill and to get some experience. The boss shouldn't be able to kill Chrom. In fact, Chrom will typically dodge his attack. If the boss has both Hawkeye and Luna Plus, you might be in a little bit of trouble, but it's more like trouble over the next few turns rather than trouble right now. The archer should ignore Chrom or Frederick and just go for Virion anyway. So this is the anchoring strategy. Even though the archer can attack Chrom or Frederick and deal more damage to them before the boss hits them, typically he'll ignore them and go attack Virion instead because Virion is a more preferable target for him. In this case, Virion is serving as the anchor behind your main tank. He's pulling aggression away and then making it so your tank only has to fight the boss. If you're in a weird situation where Chrom can't kill the mercenary, just have Frederick do it instead, and if your health is low enough that the boss can kill you, make sure to use a vulnerary. If not, rely on the fort healing as much as you can. If the boss doesn't have Hawkeye, you're most likely going to dodge all of his attacks just by keeping your sword equipped, so healing yourself to full every turn isn't that important. One alternate strategy is to have Frederick run over to the fort in the bottom right, and this will pull the boss and the mercenary away from the top of the map, and it potentially gives your other group some more breathing room when dealing with the archer. Establishing a safe zone for your other units to stand other than Frederick or your main tank is a valuable tactic on Lunatic and Lunatic Plus modes. It's good to practice and learn how to do it now. During enemy phase, the archer is going to run over, they're going to attack Virion, they're going to attack Robin, depending on who you put in the lead. He thinks he can deal a lot of damage to them, which he will, unless they dodge. And they're going to deal usually a disappointing amount of damage in return. Archers are bulky. Now, don't let this fool you. Virion especially is a very good unit in Lunatic Plus mode. His ability to contribute chip damage at 2 range is extremely valuable against high quality enemies. He can never be affected by foes with the counter skill, and his bulk is just good enough that almost nothing is going to one-shot him for a while. I'd actually say his speed is his biggest problem. If you don't start gaining levels on him soon and increasing his speed, he will eventually get to the point where he's being doubled even with a good para partner. His solid bulk stops mattering because nothing will one-shot him, but everything will double and kill him. And if it gets to that point, it's harder to keep him alive, which limits your options for using him. But even in the short term, if you only use him to make chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5 significantly easier, he provides a lot of value for the team. He also supports with Frederick and Robin, 2 of your best early game combat units, so building a C support with them before chapter 5 can be helpful for consistency in that chapter, and chapter 6, and chapter 7. Remember, like I said before, you're going to fight hundreds of battles over the course of the game. These small bonuses to hit, evade, guarding, dual striking, and crit chance that you get from support ranks will add up over time. Don't think about this as normal Fire Emblem where the goal is 100% consistency. In this mode, you want to find ways to turn your 65% chance into a 75% chance, whenever and wherever you can. That game mastery will increase the odds to bail you out of unlucky situations. These ranks do matter. Most likely at this point you'll have 2 enemies left on the map, a wounded archer and a boss who is basically just going to sit there and keep attacking Frederick forever. Make sure to keep the sword equipped because it lowers the damage and accuracy of the boss, and even if he has Hawkeye, you're still reducing his damage just by keeping a sword equipped. If the boss can't reach your top group, you can try to take out the enemy archer this turn, or you can take it slowly and just spend another turn countering him on enemy phase. Come to think of it, you get free experience by doing this, so maybe you should consider doing it. I mean, if the boss can reach this group, you need to reposition and fight on enemy phase anyway, so I'm gonna have to explain the technique anyway, so maybe you should just do it. Reposition Robin and Virion so they are standing at the edge of the archer's range again, while standing outside of the boss's range. You can either switch the other ranged attacker into the lead, depending on who has more HP, or you can use Lissa to heal them if needed while keeping Virion in front. I don't love the fact that the Thunder Tome is so inaccurate, but what can you do? Sometimes Lunatic Plus will force you into that position where your only option is to rely on Robin with the Thunder Tome. You can pretty easily choose to give this archer kill to either Virion, Robin, or Sully, depending on what you prefer. Remember to unequip the weapons of dual strike characters if you don't want them to accidentally steal the kill. Now honestly, as much as I talked up Virion before, the more runs of this game I do, the more I start to realize that he almost always peaks about level 5 or level 6, even when I try really hard to feed him. So with that in mind, I think feeding him experience might not be the best long-term play. It's better to make use of his solid early game utility while he's available for chip damage, and then bench him when better units show up. Although I'd be interested if anyone else has made good long-term use of him, and I plan to do a Virion specific video at some point in the future anyway, so we will get a more clear answer in the future. As for Sully, she is definitely long-term viable in a few different roles. First of all, she can make a great support unit. If you think about the way efficiency players use Lowen in Fire Emblem 7, or a unit along those lines, Sully has many of the same strengths. Her high mobility allows her to move around the field and do anything you need her to do. She can help reposition other units, she can do trade manipulation, or she can trade and pair up, she gives great pair up bonuses, she can run up to somebody, unpair who they're currently holding, she can deliver them a new pair up partner, she can stand at the edge of your other unit's range to pick them up and boost their movement by 7 tiles on the next turn. On top of all this, Cavaliers have a really solid pair-up stat line. In this game, unlike Fates, pair-up bonuses work a little different. They inflate to higher stat values overall, and when you gain a C support, you get an extra +1 in every stat that's already being boosted by your class. This is important for a class like Cavalier, which boosts all 4 of your physical stats: strength, defense, skill, and speed. Giving an additional +1 in all 4 stats is an extra 4 stat points in total. Now consider the fact that all of the early game male units want a physical pair-up partner, and Sully is the first one available. And you can see how she's incredibly valuable to have around. She can flexibly be used to pair up with anyone who needs it on a turn-by-turn basis, and any time she spends fighting with any of them contributes towards building this valuable C support that we've talked about again and again. You can use her in the short term, like we talked about with Virion. Even if she never gains any levels, even if she never sees any combat and you bench her later, she will still be a massive contributor to the early game. If you want to use her in the long term, make sure you allow her to pick up kills here and there by switching her into the lead whenever it's safe. She will get experience passively whenever she's paired up, and eventually she'll just promote into a Great Knight, or maybe a Paladin, depending on what you prefer. Depending on how strong she gets, she might even eventually be able to swap into a lead unit position instead of supporting her allies from the back. In all future videos, I'm going to be highlighting situations like this with the archer, where you can feed kills to basically any unit you prefer, and there's good training opportunities coming up in chapters 2 and chapter 3 as well. However, don't discount the value of the chip experience that you get from pair up, particularly with a unit like Sully that you're usually not going to promote early. She's going to eventually reach level 10 no matter what and get promoted no matter what if she's always paired up with someone like Frederick, who is just fighting constantly, and it probably lines up around with the time that you get access to infinite master seals, so it's not like you need to intentionally feed her many kills. From here on out, you've basically won the map. You can move back and forth between these forts to get the boss into a good position. Eventually, what I like to do is have Lissa heal up all of my other units and get into a spot where I can set up an enemy phase counterattack, like we did with the archer. If you waste too much time doing this, eventually you're going to start getting less experience from having fought the boss so many times, so don't drag your feet too much. But don't feel like you're rushed either. The amount of experience loss is like 1 point of experience per turn after you fought the boss 5 times. It's not as punishing as you might be imagining. Also, if you're super worried about it, or if you just love Frederick as a unit, you can have him run up and kill the boss. He's pretty consistent at doing this. Just don't forget to have him run back and get the elixir from Virion first. It's very, very, very important to do this. Once everyone is in position, get ready to draw the boss out. You do want to stand on a forest tile if you can, but it's actually more important to make sure that the boss does not stand on a forest tile. The extra +1 defense and the extra avoid can make things go horribly wrong next turn while you're trying to defeat him. The boss has HP +5, so he has a lot of HP to stall you out already. Do not make this any harder on yourself. The way you do this is by checking which spot you're standing in and seeing if there's a forest tile within 2 squares that the boss can stand in. Just avoid letting him do that. Also, pay attention to his skills. It's important. If he has Vantage, for example, fighting him on the next turn could be more tricky, so you're going to want to make sure to hit him as hard as you can on this enemy phase. I can't go over every single possible outcome, but you would really love to see this guy with Pass and Luna Plus, ironically. Pass because it does nothing here, and Luna Plus because you want to dodge his attacks anyway, and we're going to set it up so that we always survive anyway. So the amount of damage doesn't really matter. Pass and Hawkeye can be fine too, as long as you can guaranteed survive his 100% accurate attacks. Okay, he's not particularly fast, so it should be possible to draw him out with Virion in most cases. If you are using Virion, make sure that he can't reach you in one range. He has 23 attack with his short axe and a very small crit chance. Our goal is 1. Survive his attack guaranteed, and 2. Reduce his crit chance to 0. Both of those are very possible. Virion has 19 HP and 6 defense, so by default, this guy actually never kills Virion. However, this is Lunatic Plus, so of course there are several ways that this can go wrong. If the boss has Luna Plus, he will have enough damage to one-shot Virion. 23 minus 3 is still 20 damage, and that's enough. The worst part is that the extra 2 defense from Sully won't actually save you here, because the boss is still going to deal 23 minus 4 damage, which is still 19. However, it's actually fine, because we want to use the Frederick pair up here if at all possible, and here's how you set that up. Make sure Frederick can move to the spot outside of the boss range and move next to Virion. Now put Virion at the edge of the boss range as we discussed earlier. Next, have Frederick run over, equip the bronze sword if you haven't already. Make sure to grab the elixir from Virion right now. Make sure to grab the elixir from Virion right now. Yes, I said it twice. It's that important. Switch Chrom into the lead and pass Frederick over to Virion. Now you have Virion in the lead with the Frederick pair up. Frederick should be giving +4 defense to Virion. This makes the boss deal 23 minus 5 damage, which is 18, and Virion always survives on 1 HP, with or without Luna Plus. Not every character can be a primary enemy phase sweeper, but if a unit can survive on 1 HP, then hey, they're good enough. Additionally, Frederick is going to boost Virion's attack by 4 points, and those extra 4 points of damage will help you chip down the boss. And we want these two to build a C support anyway, and Frederick might even get a dual strike. Virion Frederick is a great pair up in the early game. Try to have all of your other characters unpaired if possible, and most importantly, move Sully and Robin next to Virion in spaces that are safe to stand if possible, just like in Chapter 0. If you have 3 characters adjacent to Virion, including Frederick who's paired up with him, this will boost his support bonus, and the support bonus will remove the small crit chance that the boss usually has. Again, support skills are on display here. They are extremely valuable, extremely important. With this, Virion is guaranteed to survive no matter what happens, no matter what the boss rolls, it does not matter. Even if the boss has Hawkeye, Luna Plus, and a 10% crit chance, Virion survives on 1 HP and he can never be crit thanks to the support bonus. We have done it. We've achieved 100% consistency in Lunatic Plus mode. If you want to use Robin instead of Virion, the same exact tactic is still possible, you just leave Robin in the lead position instead. It might even be possible to use the Robin and Chrom pair up for better dual striking. If you want to get experience onto Robin in this chapter, having them enemy phase the boss here is better than Virion, so keep that in mind. On the other hand, if the boss has something like Vantage, you might accidentally get into a situation where Robin can't get the kill anymore, so keep that in mind too. Finally, after you enemy phase the boss, you're going to be in this situation. The boss is wounded. If he's allowed to act again, he will kill Lissa immediately. Therefore, you must finish him off this turn, and ideally, you want to give the experience to the unit that you want to feed this chapter. Stop right now and check Frederick and Chrom's combined strength. If their total strength is less than 22, you are in a very, very bad spot. If it's exactly 21, you might be able to recover here. With 21 combined strength between them, they will leave the soldiers in the next chapter alive with exactly 1 HP, which is extremely inconvenient. You need 1 more point of strength on either Fred or Chrom. So if that's the situation, like let's say Fred has 14 strength and Chrom has 7 strength, you need to try and fix that right now. This is your last chance to do that. If Fred can gain a level by killing the boss, make sure to give the kill to Fred, because his chance of leveling up strength is higher. If not, see if Chrom can gain a level by killing the boss, and then give the kill to Chrom. If you're not able to get a strength level up here, it's honestly worth resetting the chapter or maybe even resetting the run. I've actually reset an entire run before just because of Frederick and Chrom's strength being too low. And I played everything over from chapter 0 because the next map is that difficult. Being able to one-round those enemy soldiers is key. Being able to defeat the enemies on this map is key. If you're not able to meet these damage benchmarks, there's no other ways to fix it in these first 2 chapters other than resetting for stats on level 0. That's why I am in favor of doing that. If Virion is still healthy, you can have him shoot the boss, then have someone else take Frederick, swap Fred into the lead, and kill the boss with Fred. Or have Chrom pull Frederick over and attack while using Frederick's parrot bonus. You can use Sully and Robin to move Frederick around. You can reposition and pass your other units so they're in better positions to attack. There are honestly a lot of options for fighting this guy. Again, I can't detail every single possible move, but I can tell you the general tactics and then you can apply those yourself. This is the reason why we unpaired all of our units in the last turn, so we would have the highest number of actions available to defeat the boss this turn. It's one of the things that highlights why always being paired up isn't really the best play all of the time. And remember that Lissa can heal a unit before they attack if that helps player on Vantage or even just helps them survive a counterattack. One more time, if you forgot to pass the elixir over to Frederick, this is your last chance to do that. There is no prep screen before the next battle. If Chrom and Frederick don't need any additional strength, you could consider giving this kill here to Robin, or even Sully, or maybe Virion if you don't want to invest into Robin for some reason. However, making Frederick as strong as possible will help with the next 5 chapters, so it's never a bad idea. Don't be afraid to put everything into Frederick for now. I think I slightly lean towards giving this kill to Robin just so that they're a little bit more prepared for chapter 2. Having said all that, we're pretty much done with chapter 1. The next chapter is absolutely notorious. So many Lunatic Plus runs and even Lunatic runs end right here. And there are swarms of enemies crashing into your party, and they're doing everything they can to make your life miserable and make this map feel impossible. But I promise you, it is not impossible. So how did I solve this? Well, I'll be releasing the next guide in about a week. Sub to the channel if you'd like to see that. For now, enjoy the rest of your day.